Ryan Stoffko, welcome to Business Profiles. It's a pleasure having you stop by today.
Thanks for having me, Mickey.
Of course, for our viewers, you are the founder of OPP Neuro SPA. And the first question I have is, with your practice, what is your mission?
My mission is to provide my clients with accurate, up-to-date, and neutral information associated with personalized health and personalized medicine.
What would you consider to be your ideal clientele?
My ideal client is anyone with a brain and central nervous system. My favorite client, which is everyone. My favorite client are athletes, professional athletes, and anyone that's in law enforcement. So I understand that's two broad categories, but given the nature of what I do.
Sure. What makes your practice, your neuro spa, unique?
So right now we're the only group that focuses on human repair or sleep. So we look at any type of disease that possibly forms as a secondhand consequence of sleep deprivation. Whereas if you go to a medical doctor or anyone in that approach, they look at sleep issues as a secondary consequence of disease.
And how do you think your approach to your practice would stand out from other practices that might be similar?
So right now I have a technology that's called QEEG brain mapping technology, and that is a new modern edge technology that most people don't even know exists yet. So that's one thing, and then I also have another tool called the ASP, which is the Assessment of Sleep Performance. That's another tool that makes us stand out.
Yeah, and what other services does OPP Neuro SPA provide? And what products do you currently offer?
So one of the services that we provide is personal profiling. So we have 4 or 5 different profiles that are all associated with an individual's performance state. And then once somebody gets their information, there's a few things that we can do to help people improve. And that is neurofeedback and then vibroacoustic therapy. All non-invasive, all using sound and simple approaches.
Right. Who might be interested in some of your services?
Well, anyone that doesn't want to take medications.
Medications are very dangerous.
Yes, sir. So if you're dealing with any type of pain, any type of anxiety, depression, anything under the sun, we have something for it.
Even some of the medications that you see on TV that are being advertised, the end of the commercial give you at least 7 or 8 serious side effects that come along with those medications. Is that accurate?
Oh yeah, I mean right now, I can't think of a situation where I would want to prescribe a medication to a patient, and so that's why I started up OPP Neuro SPA.
Yeah, well, explain to us what neurofeedback is, because I'm not totally sure.
So if you've ever gone into a hospital and you've seen an EEG, what an EEG does is it reads the electrical activity of your brain. And it's just little sensors that they put on your brain and they go from there. So what neurofeedback does is it reads your electrical signature to you as an individual. And then using sound and sound alone, just like out of your headphones, we feed back your brain sounds to yourself. And then we train your brain how to relax for the first time or how to cope with whatever the issue is.
And that could eliminate a whole slew of medical conditions, I would assume.
Yes, sir. Epilepsy is the big thing.
Really?
It's one of the most evidenced approaches for dealing with epilepsy or reducing the extremity of the seizures.
Right. What is vibroacoustic therapy? I wasn't sure when I read that what it was.
So in the 1980s in Norway and Finland, there was an individual named Olav Skile, or Olive Skile. What he did was he realized that patients that had everything from Parkinson's, tremors to cancer, when they were fed sound, simple vibrations, they were able to cope with their disease and their symptoms of their disease. And so what he did was he started making product lines and experimenting on sound and what it can do to our muscles. And so yeah, that's what vibroacoustic therapy is.
I came across another term in researching your practice. I want to get this right. And it's called Pharmacogenomic.
Pharmacogenomic.
I was close. Testing. Explain to us what that is, because I wasn't sure again.
So pharmacogenomic testing is something that it's a separate business that I picked up, and brought into the OPP
Right.
Neuro SPA umbrella. Basically what that is it's a simple saliva test. So you see all these people doing Ancestry or 23andMe. Same type of a test, but the report is different. And the information we get out of that is every single enzyme that is responsible for drug metabolism in your liver.
Oh, wow.
So one of the things is adverse drug reactions is the number 4 killer in the United States. And so pharmacogenomics is the first simple way to go ahead and address that issue.
And explain what PGX is and how that plays into this.
PGX is just another way to say pharmacogenomics.
That's what it is. Well,
It's
I'm going to say
the same
PGX
thing.
from now on.
Yes, sir.
I know. Okay. And why is it important for all insured American citizens to check this out? Why?
Well, right now this is completely free. So if you're somebody that's insured and you're an American citizen, this is FDA recommended. It is something that you're not going to be paying out of pocket for, and it's only going to provide information to your prescriber about what medications are going to work best for you as an individual.
Because nothing is free today. There's very few things that are free that can help you. This is one of them. Tell us a little bit about your educational background and your life experiences that kind of guided you in this direction with your current neuro spa.
So I was somebody who was always an athlete. I played many sports, and one of the things that was, big for me was, watching my parents show up to my games.
Yes.
My mom, she had a brain tumor when I was a little kid, so she never got a chance to come out to my games.
Oh, wow.
So in terms of why I went to medical school, why I went to graduate school, it was always to, find some way to help her cope with what she's dealing with.
Yeah.
So after going to undergraduate in South Carolina, I came up to Albany, New York, started doing some cancer research, found out it wasn't for me, got redirected to a medical school in the Caribbean that is based in New York City. And when I was there, I had an amazing opportunity during my fourth year semester to go ahead and work in a DARPA DoD-funded laboratory in Washington, D.C.
Wow.
And that's where they exposed me to all this technology.
Wow.
And so now I started my business to go ahead and help her out.
Tell us something about some of your first clients and the experiences they had with you and you with them.
Yeah, so my first 2 clients were my grandmothers on both sides of my family.
How great is that?
So my grandmother on my father's side, she was dealing with dementia and some old age and congestive heart failure. So that put a lot of strain on my family because we didn't want her living by herself. We had to bring her into our home, and you have another head in the house.
Sure.
You know where that can lead. So basically what my job was with her was to keep her as relaxed as possible, but also feeling, in uplifted spirits because she was kind of starting to get depressed and all that. So that was my first client. My second client was my grandmother on my mom's side. And she was somebody who had stage 4 lung cancer. When I started with her. She was a smoker. Okay. And one of the things that was big for her, she didn't want to be in the hospital on her last days. So she wanted everything at her house. And so, I was new with neurofeedback. I thought there were some limitations to it, but what was interesting with her in particular, she had metastasis from her lung, meaning the cancer migrated out of her lung and to other areas of her body, one of them having a really sharp pain in her hip. And so what I was kind of shocked about was after I'd give her a neurofeedback session, I knew there would be some pain relief. I didn't think it would be this efficacious, but she was able to walk around without her walker for about 8 to 9 hours just from listening to her brain and nothing else, not having to take any pain meds or anything like that. It wasn't until I left for about a 2-3 week period of time where she didn't have me coming to her on a regular basis that she, decided to take medications, which ultimately led to her passing.
Wow, wow.
But yeah, those were my first 2 clients.
Wow, that's interesting. What are some of the most commonly asked questions that you receive from potential clients?
So a lot of the times I always get questions like my son has ADHD or my son has anxiety.
Which is very common today.
which is very common in the world today. We're hyperstimulated.
You sure are.
So yeah, those are what a lot of my clients ask about.
Right.
And what I have to do is, it's very difficult. One of the things that's a little bit different from my side of things is I don't provide a diagnosis to any of my clients at any point in time. Because I honestly think that when you're being diagnosed by somebody else, that adds another stressor that most people, don't even think about. It's like, oh, now I have this disease, what do I do about it? So with me, what I do is I focus on education, and I focus on a particular style of education, Aristotelian education, meaning I want my client to ask questions so I know what they're thinking and what they're perceiving.
Right, because some of the medication that's given to young people when they have ADHD symptoms, they give them medication and they become zombies, many other kids.
Oh yeah, the ADHD medications that are out there today are completely barbaric. I was on them for a little bit of time, and once I, learned this technology and these approaches to kind of deal with, my symptoms, I was able to get off of ADHD meds completely.
So there are alternative ways of treating this kind of.
To be honest, I wouldn't. Yeah, you used the phrases, that most people in mainstream would use. I would say that what I do should be the forefront, and going to conventional medicine, particularly with mental disorders.
Right. Wow. Wow.
That should be considered the alternative.
Yeah. Another question I read that you often get are things such as, my mother takes a full cocktail of medications. She seems listless. It's just not a good situation.
Right.
What do you do there? Do you take them off the meds completely and start from scratch?
Well, I'm somebody that I cannot tell somebody to stop taking medications.
But they know it's not working for them.
Correct. So the first thing that I would do for somebody in that situation is I would say, you need to take an ASP so I can get you on a thought process that makes sense in terms of to set the groundwork for you. The second thing would be go right to that PGX and make sure that the doctor that's prescribing you that cocktail of pharmaceuticals is taking in consideration that there might be some adverse reactions going on there.
Well, a lot of side effects of various forms.
Yeah, so the PGX would be what I would jump to with that individual.
And the goal being?
To reduce the amount, and then eventually if neurofeedback or vibroacoustic therapy works for them, get them completely off of medications.
Right. Another question I know you receive all the time. My son is an athlete, and I see you do neurofeedback. Can it help athletes? And if so, how so?
Oh, absolutely. Going back to what my focus is, I focus on sleep. And so athletes, they need to keep their muscles functioning and functioning in a way.
And you were an athlete, so you know.
Right, that promotes their sport. So the only time that you would recover from any type of stress, whether it's content or whether it's physical muscle wear and tear, is when you're sleeping. So for athletes, the first thing that I would say is what we're going to be doing is entraining your brain with something called SMR neurofeedback, sensory motor rhythm neurofeedback.
Really?
And that's something that is evidence to go ahead and promote quality sleep, optimal health, but then prolong their career long term because that promotes optimal.
Yeah, we hear a lot about that. People say, I can't sleep, I don't sleep enough, I wake up in the middle of the night. But as a physician, how important is sleep? Tell us something that we may not know.
When it comes to perception capacity, alertness, sleep is the single most important job that every human being needs to prioritize.
Wow.
Because think about all the travels that you're doing on a daily basis.
Yeah.
You're sitting there and you're getting behind a 2-ton vehicle, and you're going to be driving, wherever you're driving. Yeah. And you're literally putting lives at risk if you're somebody who's not sleeping, or if you're somebody who's taking multiple medications that, could lead to bad side.
Right. So when somebody comes to you and say, I have a sleep issue, what's the first thing you try to do for them?
First thing I try to do for them is get them to understand what they need to be doing in terms of sleep hygiene to support, a peak performance lifestyle. Right. The second thing that I would do is that sensory motor rhythm neurofeedback. If somebody is sleeping 6 hours a night, they're sleep deprived. Yep. Sleep deprivation is something you cannot perceive. So that is something that we need to address.
Yeah. And what are some of the things that might cause sleep deprivation?
Simply stress.
Stress is number one.
stress, but I mean, stress comes in many different flavors. You have your social stress, you have your
financial stress.
Yeah, I mean, you have
Marital stress. Marital stress.
Yeah, interpersonal stress.
Diet stress. You can be drinking caffeine too late in the day.
That's actually the one thing that I don't have anything for. Actually, is nutrition and stress associated
But that's
with
kind
diet.
of common sense as well.
That's something that I would network with nutritionists and relay into my client to.
Right. And can you give some of the other professions that might benefit from your services?
Anyone in corporate America?
They're under a lot of stress.
Yeah, I mean, think about workplace ergonomics today. When you're sitting there and you're building a company, you need to know how many hours your clientele or your employees need to go ahead and function properly. And so if you're sitting there and you're making your employees work 80 hours a week, which there are plenty of companies that do that, you're not getting the maximum output and you're endangering your workers.
Sure. Now, we often hear the term autism. Has the medical community have they been getting any closer to figuring out what causes autism? And the second question is, can you help with children suffering from autism?
To your first question, I'm not really too sure if there's any strong conclusions that are out there. Simply put, if someone has autism, we can conclude that their central nervous system is very stressed, simply put, and very general.
Yeah.
Now, what can I do for somebody with autism?
Yeah, I'm sure you get that answer. My son has autism. What can you do to help?
First and foremost, I would need to educate the parents that, it's going to be an obstacle dealing with some of the things that might not be the social norm or things that you perceive as the social norm. One of the difficult things to realize is that just because someone has autism, they aren't stressed or perceiving stress when they're having their autistic outbursts.
They're not.
So there's
what causes the outburst?
Well, they're so sensitive to their external environment. If their patterns, and the things that they focus on aren't, in line, that is something that can simply, throw them out of line. And once that happens, it depends on how the external environment responds to them.
And a big part of your practice really is helping people reach peak performance in a number of professions.
Without judgment or any type of diagnosis.
Explain how that works.
Yeah, so when I say peak performance is on many levels. You want to perceive and you want to feel confident in yourself, and that's what peak performance is to me.
And focus, concentration, drive, it all goes in the kitty.
Yep. But at a cellular level, peak performance is how well do each of your organ systems actually work. So that's what peak performance means to me. It's many levels, many things that have to work in combination.
And I know I work with a lot of people in this industry that I'm in, and they're always saying I'm always tired. They get 8 hours sleep, but I'm always, how can you be tired? You get 8 hours sleep. How can you help them?
Well, that's actually an interesting thing. So if you go into any medical doctor, and if they're sitting there and they give you recommendations for 8 hours of sleep, that's what most adults need. What that recommendation is that's a recommendation that's based off of herd population and statistics.
They may need 9 hours sleep.
So what we do, which is a little bit different, is we sit there and we profile your stressors. And then we say, based on the amount of stress you have, this is how much sleep you would need to recover from that stress on a daily basis.
Yeah, because I went to the doctor once and I said, I'm tired all the time. I know I was under a lot of stress. And they gave me a vitamin B12 shot. Does that help?
Yeah, I mean, it provides the necessary vitamins and minerals for your
Psychologically, I wasn't tired for 2 days.
But yeah, I mean,
The third day I was tired again.
Yeah, I mean, it's a start in the right direction. It's providing you with the building blocks to function.
Yeah.
But there's more to it than that.
Well, I know there is. But that was their answer. Give them vitamin B12, like take 2 aspirins, call me in the morning, one of those, instead of really figuring out what's going on. A big part of what you do is accident prevention through some of your services. Explain to us how you strive to help people stay away from accidents.
First thing I can think about is with sleep and perception.
It's a new lifestyle.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not functioning at your peak, I mean, you're going to be accident prone from little slips to, like I said, the big car crashes. Right. To go a little bit further on accident prevention and talking about healthcare, the PGX, that is the the most important thing. Medical error is the number 3 killer.
It is.
Adverse drug
It is,
reactions
yeah,
is the number 4
yeah.
killer. So performance lapses are a major concern. And I think anyone that is focused and doing what they should be
Sure.
needs to
Sure.
pay attention to that.
Are your services a one-time service, fix all, go to you one time, and you come up with a solution, or is it a long-term relationship with your
Most of
clients?
my services are a long-term relationship. For neurofeedback to be efficacious, I would say a minimum, and this is the bare minimum, would be at least 10 sessions.
Yes.
Most practitioners, anywhere from 40 to 100 sessions, and it's usually a long-term relationship
Sure.
depending upon what the individual.
Yeah. Have you dealt with many people coming back from Afghanistan, soldiers, and other service people who are suffering from PTSD?
That's actually why I mentioned the law enforcement
Yeah.
community. Right now, I have 2 individuals that I've worked with that have been in the military.
Sure.
One of them was suicidal in the worst, worst part of their life, and we've got them without anything at the moment, getting straight A's in school,
Okay.
and succeeding. So far, I'm 1 for 1 with that.
Because I know that the police department had 4 suicides over the past few months, and they obviously
Last month, yeah.
last month suffer from PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah.
How can you help somebody that is either a policeman coming back from the war? How can you help them?
Well, okay, so neurofeedback would be what I would be focused on with them. We need to make them in tune with their bodies, in tune with their instincts, and confident in the instincts that they have. So one of the things that anyone yielding a weapon
Right.
might not think about is there's something called pranayama, which is called control of breath.
Yeah.
And pranayama is something that, from a accuracy and precision of your shot point of view, it increases everything. So when you're doing neurofeedback, what we're doing is, we're playing sounds and we're looking at your brain patterns, but we're training your body to sense itself and then use nothing but breathing and things like that to go ahead and optimize itself.
Yeah, I was watching a documentary on HBO last night about school shootings, Columbine and some of the other high schools and elementary schools that have experienced that. And I realized in watching it, almost all the children that went through that are suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder.
Look at the kids that
They're not right.
you look at the kids that happened at Parkland shooting. I mean,
Yes.
there's many people that can't even go back into a classroom after what they experienced.
And they had interviewed some of the kids as they were doing. We used to do fire drills, and in my day, we used to do drills for nuclear explosions. If we get a nuclear explosion, get under your desk, and like that would help, But now they're doing
School shooting drills.
school shooting drills. And I'm saying to myself, how do these kids deal with this?
I don't know how I would have dealt with it. I mean, putting the thought that somebody could come roaring through your school at any moment into a child's brain.
And they're teaching them to expect this because it's happening all over the country.
In my opinion, that is something that I would never enforce if I was, in a school system and I had that say. That being said, unfortunately, it's the reality.
It is the reality.
And people are doing it. So I need to be able to accommodate, parents and children that are dealing with those types of traumas.
There's a lot of them. What a shame. What a shame.
So one of the big things that's actually very beneficial with, not necessarily OPP Neuro SPA, because that's my business that I provide services with, but one of the groups that I work with is the Institute for Human Biology. We do one-on-one education tailored to that individual. So if that individual wants to become an accountant or they want to become whatever, and they have that dream, we tailor education to them so that they can reach their goals, so that they don't necessarily have to go into a classroom.
Right, because a lot of those kids need help.
Right.
They need to get their confidence back. A lot of things need to happen for them to lead normal lives, I would think.
There's a lot of things, and
Like a lot of things going on.
Yeah, there's a lot of things from the individual level, but also the political level. I think that need to go on.
Do you work with people suffering from epilepsy?
Neurofeedback, that's the optimal approach.
And it does work for epilepsy patients?
If there's one thing that neurofeedback is accepted within the medical community, it's for epilepsy.
It is. Ryan Stoffko, I want to say one more time, you are the founder of OPP Neuro SPA. It was a pleasure you explaining your business to us today. It's very interesting and very needed. Can you tell us where you're located and if somebody wants to get in touch with you, how do they do so? And your website and contact information. Share that with our audience.
You can reach me on my website, ryanstoffko.com. My contact information's there. I have 2 different phone numbers. I definitely recommend giving me a call and asking any questions. I'll go ahead and take any phone calls. The one thing that's, I think, unique about my service is I'm a concierge service. So rather than having you come to a hospital or come into a facility that has, a ton of electromagnetic pollution and other factors, I come to your house, your place of comfort, and I provide my services there.
Very interesting. And the website, one more time, is?
ryanstoffko.com.
Just want to say, Ryan, such a pleasure meeting you today.
Yes, sir.
And thank you for stopping by Business Profiles.
Thanks for having me, Mickey.
It's been my pleasure.